Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good whatever that you are listening to this. Welcome to the Ferret Cafe Podcast with me, Yemmy the Ferret. Hope everyone is doing really well today or this week. If you want to tune in live for the podcast recording, join the conversation and use sound commands at your leisure. Tune in every other Thursday to see what's up. Or you can listen to the VOD, which comes out the following Thursday, just so my podcast schedule isn't crushed. I mean, it is kind of crushed, but you know what I mean. Oh, please don't do this. Okay, good. The alerts don't go off in this mode. That would have been very annoying for the podcast. But yeah, here we are. We're back after a turbulent episode 10 a couple weeks ago. But I hope everyone is doing fantastic. Thank you, Gritty Waffles, for the 52-month resub. I am so glad I have alerts muted on this setup because yeah, that would not be good podcast material. But yeah, last week was rough. I don't know what happened. Maybe I just wasn't into it. I mean, I guess I kind of was. I was re-listening to it a couple days ago, and I was like, yeah. I mean, the most part, it's fine. But like, I don't know. There was just points where I just like felt like everything was going wrong, especially after I spilt that water last week. That was the turning point for a while, and then I just kind of I guess I maybe bit off more than I can chew with the tier list last week. It was just it was a large ask, lots of bands to talk about, and I didn't have like much to say, and I felt like I was doing a lot of the bands a disservice by just being like, and I like them, A tier. So, yeah, apologize about that last episode, but what you gonna do? It's funny because I started that episode off with like, oh, it's episode 10, are we hitting our stride? No. That was actually a part of our downfall. But we're back, and we're ready to go, and we're here, and everything's fine. And we're back, and I'm back. If you don't know, I was on vacation last weekend. Well, I guess mini vacation. Trip? I don't know. What do you want to call it? Just, yeah, it was nice. I'll talk about it in a little bit. We got a couple things to talk about today. I don't think I'm going to have a lot to say about the total eclipse that happened over Ohio, but, I'll mention it. And then, yeah, some drama. We got to talk about some drama. And all that and more on today's episode of Ferret Cafe Podcast. Before I started the show, the Twitch server I was using, I guess, I usually use the New York one, or one of the New York ones, and it was giving me a lot of frame rate drops, so I switched out. So if perchance it starts if the stream starts dropping frames or whatever, just do a sound command that would annoy me, I guess. And I don't think I won't be able to do anything, but I switched over to auto, so that means it went to whatever was the strongest connection, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, well, I suppose we'll just get started with the... I'm going to start with the Eclipse because I don't have a lot to say about that. It'll be the easiest thing. I probably won't even put it in the title. But, the Eclipse was cool, okay? I don't care. There's haters out there who are saying the Eclipse, like, who cares about the Eclipse, whatever. Those people who are saying that it's like a waste of time or whatever, they didn't see the total eclipse, okay? The total eclipse was amazing. Like, I get like, okay, a partial eclipse, that's not cool. Sure, maybe a partial eclipse is like, okay, I could see that any day of the week. Maybe, I doubt it, but whatever. But the total eclipse was definitely worth it. It was It was pretty crazy. I mean, I don't think. Well, I think the last total eclipse was like 20-ish years ago, so I was alive for it. I don't remember anything about it because I was probably. I think it was more than 20 years ago actually at this point. I don't know. But I was like, oh yeah, the eclipse. It was really cool. Like, for about 5 minutes, it was just like a very like neat thing. It had like the little solar flares coming off of it, or the little red spots. I think those are solar flares or something. And it had like that white hue around it, which was just really cool. It was just it was one of those like experiences that I don't know how many of those are you gonna see in a lifetime. I don't know. Maybe just one. Maybe it'll be one. Maybe it'll be several. I don't know. The funny thing about the eclipse though is there's a lot of people who like chase eclipse, the eclipse chasers. So they go like all across the world pretty much, getting total eclipses, as many as they can. We were talking to one of our friends the other day, or I think it was yesterday, and they were like, yeah, I was talking to a guy and he saw 8 eclipses in his lifetime. I'm like, damn, and he's like 103 years old or something. I was like, wow. But hey, it's worth it. I mean, it's a really cool experience because I know probably all of you know what happened during the eclipse, but like, there's that buildup of like, I don't know, like an hour where, the moon is moving into position, and then there's like the 5 minutes of total eclipse, and then another like hour or so of it moving out of position, and it's really cool leading up to it because a lot changes. Like it's kind of freaky how like once the eclipse like really starts to once the moon starts to cover the sun up a lot, like the temperature like drops drastically, like 20 or so degrees, and then like all like the nighttime stuff starts happening. You start hearing the frogs, the peepers, start doing their thing, and like the birds are all gone, and it's kind of like the wind like died down and all that stuff. It was just kind of crazy, but it's also really cool, And those ancient civilizations who were in the path of totality had to be shitting themselves when eclipses happened. I know that I think it's the Aztecs. They like had rituals they would perform during an eclipse or something. Was it the Aztecs or? It was one of them. They could accurately predict when an eclipse was going to happen, if I remember. It was either Mayans or the Aztecs. I don't remember. But I could just. I mean, I'm trying to put myself in the position of like an ancient civilization person who's like, oh my god, the sun is gone. We must sacrifice the firstborn, or like, oh my god, we gotta sacrifice something quick. What the fuck's going on? Ow! And then it just passes in like 5 minutes, and there's like 15 dead bodies, or like they threw like 50 like babies over the side of a cliff or something like that. Like we did it, we saved, and then everyone's like, yay, we saved everyone, and there's just a pile of dead bodies on the ground. Like, we did it, we saved us all. I feel like that's kind of how it would go, But it was, I mean, yeah, once again, the eclipse, pretty freaking cool. And there was one really stupid thing I saw on Twitter that I have to bring up because it's like, whatever. But so leading after the eclipse, I was just kind of scrolling the eclipse, subject on Twitter, and there was a person who posted like a picture of a train full of like military equipment, and the tweet was like, look at what the U.S. is doing while you're distracted by the eclipse. And it's like, dude, the eclipse was 5 minutes long. Did they move all this equipment in 5 minutes while everyone was looking up at the sun? It's like, dude, this train of military equipment went from here to here. And like a bunch of people in the comments were like showing like, hey, this is a normal thing. Like they move equipment back and forth all the time from these two bases by train. And he's like, no, I don't believe it. Like, it was just one of the most insane Twitter threads I've ever seen at this point. Well, not really, actually. I've seen much worse, but it was just a funny thing. Like what do you think that the military is like during the total eclipse? they are moving all this stuff in secret. There's no lights on. It just goes. It's like, dude, they could do that like in the middle of the night. Like they're doing it in broad daylight too. Like the picture of like is like it's broad daylight. The vehicles and artillery is there on the train, and there's like soldiers like working to strap it all in. And it's like, if it was really something secretive that they didn't want you to see, wouldn't the first thing they do is like confiscate the person's phone who's taking a picture, or be like, hey, that guy's not supposed to be here. But instead it's like, no, they were just moving fucking military equipment. It's the U.S. We have billions of dollars in our military. Okay, they're gonna be moving equipment around. And like the 5 minutes that there's a total eclipse is not enough to distract people from like not noticing if they're moving like, you know, weapons of mass destruction or some shit. Like it's just fucking silly. It's kind of it is silly. No. Anyway, yeah, there's a lot of silly things that people say. I tend to stay off of Twitter as much as I can, but you know, sometimes you get bored and just like start scrolling, and all of a sudden that algorithm gets you real good. Yeah. It kind of almost felt like the build up to the eclipse kind of almost was like Y2K at one point, because like, you know, I was seeing all this stuff like on YouTube videos. They're like, cell phones might stop working, and weather predictions might be inaccurate, and you know, animals will go crazy, and the electronics will burn out, and there won't be internet. And it's like, no, I had all that stuff. Like there was nothing happened. Like people are so silly, silly people. Listen, folks, if you have a second, go ahead and get a drink of something: water, coffee, hot chocolate, etc. Tea maybe. I had green tea yesterday. I love me some green tea. And hey, get that. Take a sip if you want to. My dog just banged his head against my closed door and it opened. That's pretty crazy. Yeah, make sure you stay hydrated during the cast, folks. And yes, my drink is way out of the way, so I won't even be tempted to spill it. I won't even be tempted. Oh, he already left. All right, let's get into the meat and bones here of the episode. I don't know how long this episode is gonna go. I don't even have my notebook today, folks. I didn't really write anything in my notebook this past week or these past 2 weeks. So it's kind of like an off the rails episode in a way, where we don't really have a track for the train to run, but we're gonna get somewhere, and wherever we get is where we go. So that's that. Anything else I gotta say about the eclipse? No, that's pretty much it. It was cool. What do you expect? Also pretty cool that like the work let me go home early, like half a day. Most people were out of work by the time the eclipse happened. That was pretty cool. That's pretty nice. Not everyone, of course, but it was nice that, you know, the perks of being being a worker in a small company, I guess. All right, let's talk about this dog barging into my room 2 times now. No. All right, let's talk about the sad news this week, which had to do with one of my favorite bands. I mean, I arguably say that they are my favorite band. Like, it just depends what day that you talk to me. Some days it's this band, some days it's that band. You know, it's just. But for the most part, usually if I'm talking about a band, my favorite band, it's usually Dance Gavin Dance. I have been following them since like 2013 at this point. I know it was after. It was right around when Mothership came out, which I think was maybe 2014 actually. So that entire time that I've been a fan of them, the lead singer has been the same, which was Tillian. And when I first listened to them, I kind of had to warm up to them. I remember listening to them for like a second, And I was like, oh, I don't know about this. And then, you listen a little bit more and you're like, okay, I get it. I really like this. And Mothership became one of my favorite albums for quite some time. It actually was probably my favorite Dance Gavin Dance album until Jackpot Juicer came out recently. I'm going to spill some tea right now. Greedy Waffle, you know what Greedy Waffle said the first time I asked him if he liked Dance Gavin Dance? He said, it sounds like the band members are fucking their instruments. Or whatever. It's true. I remember it pretty vividly. And then we went to Warped Tour and we saw them live. And he was like, I like Dance Gavin Dance now. Oh, you definitely said that. I remember. I remember pretty vividly. Because I was like, LOL, what? And he'll deny it all he wants, but he did say that. I remember quite vividly. But don't worry, it all worked out, because at Warped Tour, we saw them live, and you were like, your eyes were opened, and you've been a fan ever since. Actually, I think it's ever since Summertime Gladness came out that you enjoyed them. I think that's just, I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like that's when you really got into Dance Gavin Dance. But anyway, so essentially since the whole time I've been listening to them, Tillian has been the lead singer, and if you don't know, Tillian has the voice of, has a very good voice. I'm not gonna say a voice of an angel, but like a very, very good voice. Can go really high, like it's pretty crazy. And it was just like, it was a perfect fit, I would say, from the get-go. I think he started with, what album did he start with? Hold on, let me pull up their albums real quick. I know the album, but, it's one of those things where I'm just kind of blanking in the moment here right now. He's actually done, like, what has he done, like 8 albums with them so far? That's, of course, not counting, the Tree Sessions 2 and the re-recording of Acceptance Speech. I'm pretty sure he started with Instant Gratification, right? Yes. Yeah. And ever since then, like, it's like the band's really, like, I would say that they hit their stride recently, really. I like, because the albums before this, like Mothership and Artificial Selection, are great albums for sure. Like, they're really, really good albums. Afterburner was like not my favorite that they put out, and then they put out Jackpot Juicer, and it was like my eyes being opened for like the 3rd time. Like, Mothership opened my eyes for the 2nd time, and Jackpot Juicer opened my eyes for the 3rd time. And I even said during like the whatever, I don't know if I was doing a podcast or whatever the I think it was Fubar Ferret talking about my top 10 albums of the year. I was like, Mothership was their magnum opus. That got pushed to the side. Now their magnum opus is Jackpot Juicer. Like, it's crazy, just like how they were firing on every single cylinder. The lyrics were great. The music was great, and it's one of those things that it's unfortunate that they've departed from him. I guess you can kind of see the writing on the wall a little bit, especially after like a week before the Jackpot Juicer came out. They like had to take a break from him, and he put himself into rehab for allegedly sexual assault and whatever. So I almost wonder if the band was like, yeah, we'll just do the press circuit, do a couple more tours, and that'll be it. And it's not like the band says like that was the reason why he's gone. Obviously, there's really been no tea spilled about this yet, so you kind of it's all just kind of speculation. Let me just read the thing that the band put out here on their Instagram. They said, Dance Gavin Dance has always attempted to reconcile situations internally, but after much consideration, we have, as a collective, decided to say farewell to our longtime member and friend, Tillian. We wish him luck, along with our support and respect for his future endeavors in music and life. That's part 1. That's paragraph 1. It's a bit... I mean, that first line kind of, I guess, kind of says it all. They attempted to reconcile situations internally. So I'm guessing there was maybe some infighting, maybe some differing opinions about things, obviously, but we don't really know. Second paragraph, we thank him for his years of friendship and contribution during his time in Dance Gavin Dance. As people grow and change, creative differences can arise, and life's paths and goals may no longer align. We want to thank you for your support over the past 2 decades. We are truly grateful that we can continue to play music for a career, and we are excited to move forward with this new era for the band. Once again, not much said there. And you gotta read between the lines, obviously, but it sounds like there was some issues boiling over in the band. If we head over to Tillian's Instagram page, he said on his Instagram, I had an absolute blast making songs and albums with this group of unbelievably talented dudes for the past 12 years. We had a truly unique connection with one of the most dynamic fan bases out there. I have nothing but gratitude for the lush and enigmatic experience we've all got to share together in this era of Dance Gavin Dance. And that is a good way to describe Dance Gavin Dance. They have eras, and this was just another. This was an unexpectedly, I guess, longer era than I think most people maybe expected. Especially if for people who were fans of the band for longer than when Tillian was in there. Obviously, when Tillian joined the band, I think it really did open up the band to a wider audience because his voice was so unique and because he gave the band such a unique vibe. I mean, Johnny, what was his name? Johnny Craig. I mean, he's a good vocalist at times, but I don't know, his sounds, his vocal sounds never like, when I listen to older Dance Gavin Dance stuff with him in it, I never like truly am into it. I like his stuff with Emma Rosa, but I mean, he's also had quite a rocky life. Not to get into any of that because we'd be here for 5 hours, but it's kind of been a tumultuous journey for Dance Gavin Dance and singers, and with the parting of Tillian here, it kind of rotates back to that. But you can at least appreciate the music that they put out for the past 10 years, and I guess that's really all that matters in the long run is the output of music was fantastic. Like even at the lowest point during his run with the band, which is, I personally think, Afterburner, it's still like a good album, but it's like a 7 out of 10, whereas Mothership's like a 9, and Artificial Selection's like a 9 as well, and Jackpot Juicer is a 10, and Instant Gratification is like an 8. It's still great music, in the end, right? And it's gonna be a bit of, we'll see what happens, but it is gonna be a bit of a weird transition period where, we'll find out who the new singer is, and it's probably gonna be a weird first album to not hear Tillian's voice on it for a lot of people. And there you go. And I'm not sure who they're gonna add to the band to pick up the singing role. I was thinking Anthony Green of Circus Survive, but then again, I think he doesn't want to do music anymore, so I don't think he would come back to that. He's been having some issues with bipolar and schizophrenia, I'm pretty sure. So, Circus Survive was also one of my favorite bands, so it would have been maybe a perfect marriage for me personally, because I really do like Circus Survive a lot, but yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't even know if he would be a good fit for the band either. I think what they're gonna do is they're gonna try and find someone who is vocally similar to Tillian, because there's a lot of songs that they have in their repertoire that like the high notes and stuff that Tillian was doing was crazy. Like, take anything, if you're a person who's critical of Tillian or whatever, like, take that all out of your brain for a second and just, appreciate the talent that was on display during a lot of these albums, like hitting the highs, hitting the lows, the songwriting and the lyrics just immaculate, It's I don't know, the Dance Gavin dance community does seem to be a bit divided right now, as I was looking around to like Twitter and Reddit and stuff like that. A lot of people saying like that they're happy that he's gone, and I don't know if I'm like happy that he's gone, because that's really the only version of Dance Gavin Dance that I've known. But it is one of those things that's like, well, if it really was because of what he did or whatever, I mean, that's, it's got to be done, and you sometimes just got to cut out the you just got to cut out the bad seeds, and yeah, that's, I mean, maybe a lot of people are saying that it should have been done sooner, before Jackpot Juicer came out. I would like to say, in the band's defense, like, there was a lot of shit going on at that time. We lost the bass player, and then the allegations came out, and then the album like was delayed a week or something like that, and then they put out the album. So it was like a crazy cluster of like events, because you're trying to hype up this album, and now you're dedicating the album. And then you're like, okay, well, the album's dedicated now, and then all that stuff came out about Tillian. It's like, what the fuck, And he goes into whatever. So it's always complicated. It's always going to be complicated. But all I can say is that if the only reason you were there was for Tillian, then it's going to be a rough transition. But the thing that I want to say is that Tillian was not Dance Gavin Dance. There are 4 other members of the band who also are extremely talented at what they do, are excellent songwriters, guitar players, drum, percussionists, they know their shit. John Mess, I still stand by it, one of the best, if not the best, dirty vocalist on the scene. Give him a chance to slot in another person, and we'll see what happens. I personally don't think that I'm gonna hate the band after this happens. Like, even the stuff before that Tillian came into the band that I say that I don't like super vibe with, I still enjoy the songs when they come on Spotify. Like, I have all the albums saved, of course, and liked. And when a song comes on, it's not like I'm like repulsed and disgusted. I'm like, ugh. No, I vibe more with the sound when Tillian's there, right? And you can also say it's because they've matured more in their sound. They've grown as artists over the past 10 years. The sound is better. The recording studio is better. So yeah, that's that. It's just it's gonna be a weird little transition period here. We'll see what they decide to do. But I am not a person who can see into the future, so we will have to wait and see, as usual. the old adage there. Okay, well, let me take a minute to say thank you, everyone, for coming to the podcast today. Once again, I don't know how long this episode is going to be. Don't really have anything super planned today, but appreciate everyone who is here and chatting and lurking. I hope everyone is doing great. Callus asks, has there been a band that have continued to be popular after the lead singer made them popular left? The first band that comes to mind is AC/DC. The second band that comes to mind is Van Halen. The third band that comes to mind, I guess the third the band that comes to mind for me personally is Barry Tomorrow. I mean, there's a lot of bands that are kind of underground-ish that I could say, like, oh yeah, this band's still good after this person left, and that band's good. There are some bands though that, like, if the lead singer left, it would be a totally different vibe or a totally different. It wouldn't even. It would feel like a different band. And then there's some bands where like Necrogoblicon where the dirty vocalist and lead singer of that band left. They were able to pick up the pieces and add the parts in to make them sound pretty much the same. So there's some bands where they lose their lead singer and it's like, oh well, fuck, we're done. Or the sound changes so much that you don't really recognize them anymore. And then there's other bands that they change their name or they form a new band and they go from there and stuff like that. So there's probably more artists that I could possibly think of, but on the spot probably can't. Yeah, I'm not. I can't think of anything right now. But that being said, there are a few examples there, I guess. I think AC/DC would be like the biggest one, right? Because I mean, their sound really didn't change when Bryan Cranston is his name, I think, joined. Like they're like the vibe of the band was very similar, just the vocals were just like completely different, right? Which you could say like, hey, that's a completely different band without the original lead singer there, right? Van Halen I think Van Halen kind of kept doing their thing too, just a slight vocal change. AC/DC's was a major vocal change, let's be honest. Yeah. So there are some examples. There's probably more, you know. There's probably plenty more, but I think AC/DC would be the one, right? That would be the one that people point to, like, hey, here's a band that was successful after a major lineup change, and they actually made albums afterwards that were still as good, if not better, than the original songs that the band put out, right? Or albums. I said albums. Albums that the band put out, which is obviously all subjective. So, yeah. All right, let's talk about my vacation, mini vacation, whatever you want to call it. I'm gonna say vacation, even though it wasn't like a full like week of vacation. It was still a vacation. We and it kind of started on Thursday night when we went to go see a couple bands at a place near Cleveland, which it was a really cool venue. I think it was called the Roxy. Yeah. It was an old bowling alley that they repurposed and made into a venue. So, like, the bar is completely made out of the old bowling alley, like, lanes, like the wood from the lanes, which is pretty neat, if I do say so. And the whole vibe in there was pretty cool too. I enjoyed it. It was a tight venue though. So I would say once I guess it was technically the third band, but it was the second band we saw started playing. I mean, it was like sardines in a can, which I'm not like super crazy about. I kind of like having at least enough space to move my arms enough that I could like scratch an itch on my back, or not have to worry about bumping into someone when I'm adjusting like my jacket or shirt or whatever. I usually wear I have these joggers that have zippers on the sides, so I don't have to really worry about pickpockets. But that could also be an issue as well if you don't have those things. But there was 4 bands. We only saw 3 of them because we got there late. But the 3 bands that we saw were really good. The first one that was up on the stage was Body Thief, which I actually had not listened to ever. I didn't listen to any music that they put out or anything like that, before the show. So, it's one of those things where you kind of go in without any knowledge of the band, and by the end of their set, I had saved their latest album on my Spotify, and I thought they were pretty good. They're not like super heavy. They're almost the same as the headliner, which was Hail the Sun. They obviously have a bit of a different vibe, but it's got some pop elements in there and stuff. But there was one song that they played. It was the last song they played, and I was like listening to it, and I'm like, yeah, this is like the perfect like closer for a concert. And like actually, like I could definitely hear this song like being played on the radio, or being in someone's like being played like anywhere. They definitely have a hit on their hands. The latest album that they put out is good. And then there's this song called Ego Displacement on it that is like certified banger. Like the chorus is so catchy, and they put on a good show too. Like it wasn't just like them standing in place and playing their instruments, like some bands do. I just want to play like a millisecond of this song here. Yeah, I think the vibe is really good there. So if you want to check that out, I mean, Body Thief is the band name. If you like that, most of their songs kind of sound, they have like that layered vocal quality to them. And yeah, so it was a good show. They put on a good show, and they earned a spot on my Spotify, which they didn't. I mean, the last album they put out is 2022, so maybe they'll be putting out another one next year or so. But we'll see. We will see. The other band that came on before Hail the Sun was Intervals, which is a band that I like, but they are an instrumental band, a metalcore band. Lots of polyrhythms and stuff like that. They're very technical, and I'm not gonna shit on instrumental bands, obviously, but there were some songs that they were playing, and I was like, damn, if there was just a vocalist here, like I could listen to this song all day. The one thing that I will say that really piqued my interest was that the bass player was wearing a Deftones tank top, or I guess a sleeveless shirt. He might have ripped the sleeves off. I don't know. But it's always nice to see another fan out in the wild. Yeah, there's millions of fans, so it's not anything different. But I mean, they put on a good show. If you don't like, I guess, dirty vocals and screaming and whatever, and you do like the background music that plays during a lot of these metalcore bands, then maybe you want to check out Intervals. They have a very fun sound. They have a lot of bopping tunes. They lack that the zinger of the singer. And in my opinion, I know that, I mean, I know that they're very popular and a lot of people love them, and I do enjoy them. Like I said, I kind of need the vocalist in there. I need something. Just complete the package. That's all I'm asking for. They don't have to. There's plenty of bands that are instrumental only, and they're great. Like Andromeda and of course Intervals. And there's another band that I was listening to a while ago. Oh man, I would have to scroll through too many albums to find it though. Possibly. But it was, what was it? It had like an astronaut on the cover. No, it had like a airplane on the cover with an astronaut in the background. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to find it. It was like a new wave metal kind of band too, like a more of a. Oh, here it is, Ghost Tapes. Wow. I can't believe it. I've scrolled through less than half of my list and I found the band. God is an Astronaut. I listened to them a bunch when that album came out in 2021. Another instrumental band. Their best song is Burial, in my opinion. I don't know if have they put anything new since 2021. Latest release was 2024. Oh, it's a live album. Never mind. Well, I'm glad they're still doing stuff. I do follow them. 2022 was their latest album. All right. Well, anyway. So yeah, it's not like I hate instrumental bands. I do like to have the vocals in there. You know, it's just one of those things that I do like. And then of course the piece de resistance was when Hail the Sun came out and they did their set. It was a nice mix of older songs and newer songs, which is great. Concerts where it's just the new stuff is kind of annoying to me because even though a lot of what bands put out that's new is good, they haven't, like, the songs haven't had the time to like germinate within you, right? You know, you listen, like this Hail the Sun album came out, the newest one came out last year, I'm pretty sure. I can find this one much faster than, or can I? Mindwriter came out in 2023, so that was last year. So even though the songs are good, they haven't had their time to like sink in and like get those re-listens in of like, you know, however many times you need to re-listen to a song, right? You know, like Divine Intertention was the latest album from 2023. That was Mindwriter was a song from the album. Anyway, Hail the Sun. If you don't listen to Hail the Sun, you're crazy. One, they are an amazing band, and they have been on my top 10 albums lists pretty consistently since like 2018, 2016. Even if I was doing stuff back then, I wasn't. But Mental Knife was, I believe, the top album of the year that came out. New Age Filth, I believe, was also either at the top or near the top when that album came out. And Divine Intertention was also towards the top when that album came out as well. Now, Hail the Sun has gone a bit heavier, in my opinion, since their last album, which is a good. I mean, it's a good thing. It's also like an interesting thing as well. They're definitely the Divine Intertention album definitely was a bit angrier. They were a bit angrier when they were writing it. And that does come out in their stage presence. Now, Hail the Sun has always put on an excellent performance. There's never been a Hail the Sun performance that I've been like, oh, that was boring. No, I mean, everyone in the band is so animated. The lead singer is all over the place. He's a great vocalist, and he's also a drummer. He will sing and play drums at the same time. And when he switches instruments, from just singing to singing and drumming, that's when you know shit's about to get real. You know, it's just Hail the Sun has been a favorite of mine. Not as long as Dance Gavin Dance, but almost as long as Dance. They did a tour with Sianvar and Hail the Sun, which the lead singer is in both Sianvar and Hail the Sun, right? And they've been a staple in my rotation for quite some time now, and it was fun to see them live. And the crowd wasn't too bad at this one. It was just a lot of people. And there was, of course, there was the normal like, oh, we're gonna mosh, but it was a good crowd, which you don't always get a good crowd in these kind of cramped conditions. And the one thing that I will say is, for some reason, I woke up on Thursday, the morning of, and my feet hurt. And I was like, why did my feet hurt? I was barely standing, for more than an hour at a time. Yeah, the last day. And I knew going into this concert that my feet were going to be dying by the end of it because you gotta stand for like a couple hours, like 3 or 4 hours. And by the end, I was still enjoying Hail the Sun, but my feet hurt so bad. And like they were doing their last song, and I'm like, I hate to say this, but I was like, please don't do an encore because I'm dying here. And they didn't do an encore to, my feet's pleasure. But I felt so bad because I was like, oh my gosh, like I was still enjoying the show, like I said, but like my feet were so like they were fucked. I don't know what happened. But it was still a good time. I would do it again in a heartbeat, obviously. And that was that. And the next day we packed up our stuff, and I played a little bit of Banisher's Ghost of New Eden in the morning just to kind of get it out of my system. And we did our journey to our main vacation destination, which was Cincinnati, Ohio. I know. To the people who don't live in the U.S. or don't live in Ohio, to go from Cleveland to Cincinnati is about 4 hours of driving. And in a couple of places in the world, you can go through multiple countries in that time span. But that is pretty much from one end of Ohio to the other end of Ohio is about 4 hours. And I think it's a little bit more if you go like, I guess, point to point. I guess if you go from the top of Ohio all the way to like the little like I call it the thumb, but you can also call it like the dick and balls on the bottom of Ohio. I think that's like 4.5. But Cincinnati is more so towards it's more so towards like the Indiana, Illinois side, I guess you could say. But Kentucky is still like right there, and like the city does kind of like share a border. It has a border with Kentucky and Newport, and it's really cool because they have like this purple bridge that goes across the Ohio River, where you can just like walk across, and you can go between the cities, and they're two completely different vibes. Let me just tell you that much. Cincinnati, the people driving in Cincinnati are lunatics. I don't know what else to say. They ride your ass. They want you to continuously just speed up. They don't give you time to turn or anything. It was crazy driving in Cincinnati. And in not Louisville, that's way different. And in the Kentucky side, in the Newport side, it was chill. It was like around where I live. I was like, damn, this is nice. And it was a vibe there. It was like totally different, like 100% change in vibe from one end to the other end. We didn't go to Kentucky until the second day. So the first day we did our 4-hour drive, and on the way there, it was like 40 minutes before we were gonna get to our destination. It was like the end of the long drive, right? And all of a sudden traffic stops, and it's backed up for miles and miles and miles. And in the morning when we were getting ready to leave, we got the alert when we were setting off that, oh, there's a accident, this far, this close to Cincinnati, stops traffic on the freeway. And we're like, 6:30 in the morning it happened. It's going to be cleared by the time that we get there, right? Nope. Damn, dude. We were stuck, like, either not moving or moving slightly for about an hour before traffic started to, like, pick up and actually go. And that was probably the longest hour of my life, because like it was just like nothing. There was nothing to look at either. It was, if you've ever driven through Ohio, it's a lot of fields and cornfields and nothing for most of the way to different places. And it was just like, what? Why? Like, this was at 6:30 in the morning, and they still haven't cleared this by now. A semi flipped over or something like that. There was an accident, so they were still trying to get all that stuff out of the way, and they were pretty close to being in a place where I thought they could, you know, get it away by the time that we drove past. But it was pretty bad accident. And the funny thing is that at that 40-minute mark, when the traffic was slowing down, there was an exit, and the exit was like, oh, this will add like an extra like 20 minutes to your time, because you got to go around the freeway and go through the back streets. And there was also a lot of traffic trying to get off, and that was also going to slow things down. And we were slowed down to get off, and we were actually in the exit lane. Waiting for traffic to start moving and go to get off the freeway to do the little diversion. And a truck pulls past me, and I look, and I'm like, oh, there's like, the traffic's moving fine just up ahead. Maybe it's just a fluke. They cleared it, and we're good to go. So the last second decision was made to get back onto the freeway, and almost immediately when we pulled onto the freeway, traffic stopped. And I was like, damn. Motherfucker. If we had gotten off the freeway, it would have saved us at least 40 minutes of just sitting and doing nothing on the freeway. Which is just so annoying. So annoying. Our check-in time at the hotel was like, I think it was 4 o'clock. And we were trying to get to our first stop of the day at like 2-ish. And we ended up getting there at like 3:40. And our first stop was pretty interesting, especially for like the first thing to do in the area was this place called Jungle Gyms. And I think it's a franchise, but this was like the first original Jungle Gyms. And if you don't know what it is like an everything store. Like it felt like the size of a mall, honestly. It was just one store. And there was food, there was collectibles, there was video games, there was candy, there was multiple cultures foods, like everything from Vietnamese food to German food, to food from the UK, Mexico, South America, Australia. They had like all these like giant rows of just food from all these different places everywhere. And mixed in occasionally there were these animatronics that were quite frankly scarier than anything that Five Nights at Freddy's has to offer. I'll be honest, because they were old and jittery and disturbed. There was a you can probably look up videos of it. At Jungle Gyms there was this Elvis impersonator wolf, and we watched it sing about half of a song. I think it was Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog or whatever. And like his eyeballs weren't moving at the same time, and I was like, yeah, I'm done with this. I'll be seeing you in my dreams, in my nightmares. There was also another like another animatronic that was like this giant swinging Campbell's soup can, and like every so often he would talk and like laugh while you're walking around. It was just kind of weird. There's a lot of like just kind of weird things, right? So like there's another group of animatronics that was the Kellogg's band. So they had like Lucky the Leprechaun, the Honeybee from Honey Nut Cheerios, and the Trix Rabbit, and they were like singing, but they were like off-brand. They weren't actually like sponsored by Kellogg or whatever. So it was also pretty weird. And then there was another animatronic that was Robin Hood, and they like had this giant tree with like roots and grass coming off of it, and underneath it you could go underneath, and there was like the Robin Hood's treasure was inside the tree if you looked up, and it was over the UK area. It was just like, it was just bizarre. Like this guy, like it was just a very bizarre and overwhelming store, and we didn't even get to see the whole thing, because by the time that we were done just kind of gathering stuff to have for our hotel room and snacks for on the way back and stuff like that. It was close to time to, if we wanted to chill out a little bit at the hotel before the concert that we were going to in Cincinnati, we had to go like now. So we ended up leaving, and it was crazy. It's a crazy place, and it's definitely worth like just the experience in general, because it's just so crazy. I don't know if I would like want to go back, but having like just that one-time experience was like enough for me for a lifetime. I'm sure I'll go back if we are in the area, but it's hard to believe that people like go there for normal shopping, like their normal everyday shopping, because it's one of those stores that's just like crazy huge, so much food, so much variety of food, so many people. Yeah, it's just one of those things that was just crazy. It was absolutely insane, I would say. I would dare say absolutely nutty. So we go to the hotel room after that, and this place that we go to, it's all themed around people who have graduated from the Cincinnati College, and our room key had Travis Kelce on it. That's right. The room itself was nice. It was a bit dirty, in my opinion. Like the couch that was in there and the little table were dirty. You had to clean it off. But other than that, it was nice. There was a bizarre setup for the bathroom. Not only was the wallpaper kind of crazy with this dude's face plastered all over it, so essentially you walk in and it's like your normal hotel bathroom size. On the left was the sink and the counter with a big mirror. And then on the right, immediately to the right, was the shower stall sliding door, glass door. And only one side of the sliding door opened. And it was, of course, the side on the opposite side of the nozzle, like the handle for the shower. So if you wanted to start the shower, you actually had to get into the shower and start it. And, of course, the water's going to be cold, so you jump out before, it hits you. It was just a weird setup, and then the toilet was between the counter and the bathroom stall. I'm sorry, the shower stall. And so like while you're taking a shower, you can like you can like watch yourself in the mirror. It was just so weird. It was such a bizarre thing. It was weird. Yeah. And then there was like some fun like pictures in there as well. Yeah, the hotel room was fine. Like I don't really have any gripes about that. So then came the perilous journey through downtown Cincinnati to get to the venue, and it was only like an 8-minute drive. I guess it was like a 15-minute drive, but it was just I tell you folks, it was not fun to drive in Cincinnati, Ohio. Okay, I mean, if you're from there, you probably are used to it, but the freeway that goes through the city is set up so bizarrely. There's exits like on the left and the right, and I'm just not used to that. In my area, it's like always on the right. Even when you're in downtown Cleveland, like, yeah, sure, there's like an exit on the left occasionally, but not really. It's like one exit on the left in the entire freeway section that goes through Cleveland. And it's not like it's right after an exit on the right or an entrance on the right. You got some time to get there. In Cincinnati, it's like, okay, so you enter in from the right, and then immediately after like 0.5 miles, you exit on the left. And it's like, what? What the fuck is this, So the navigation was bizarre and difficult, but also like the people driving there were crazy. And I drive every day. I drive for hours on end, okay? I'm used to people being crazy when driving, but this was a whole nother level of like riding your ass, not giving you the time to slow down and turn, wanting to blitz through yellow and red lights after they change, stuff like that. Just like stuff that I'm not used to because I do consider myself a pretty good driver, okay? And of course, we get to the parking garage, which is not even the closest parking garage. The venue lied to us. And parking garages in Cincinnati are also different than Cleveland. Now, I'm not trying to make excuses here. I know it's going to sound like I'm making 1,000 excuses. I'm not. What happened. It was my fault, okay? Turning into my parking spot in Cincinnati in the parking garages that are under the buildings, instead of it being like Cleveland where there's like sections of parking spaces and then like a whole wall supporting the inner structure of the building, there was just these like concrete support beams jutting up from the floor every so often. So the layout was very open, unlike a Cleveland garage where it's like, each section is kind of like walled off essentially. And so I'm turning into my spot, and there's a person riding my ass, of course, in the parking garage. And I didn't really like when I saw the spot. I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. I slowed down, and the person behind me was like right up against me, and I'm like, guess I'm doing it. I even said while I was turning into the parking spot, I don't like this. But I kept going. There were so many moments in that like 3-second span where I should have stopped and just been like, okay, let the people go around me and reposition myself, but I didn't. And so there's a pillar to the right of me, and I clear it with the front of my car and the side of my car and my mirror. And I get to the wheel hub, and I scratch up the wheel hub and dent it a little bit, getting into the spot. And I don't know about you all out there, but this was the first time in this car I've had this car for like 6 years now, that I've actually had any major damage to it. And I was so disappointed in myself. Like, it didn't ruin my entire day, but it was a moment where I was just like, fuck me. I can't believe I did that. And of course you go through the million things that you should have done in the moment, but you didn't do. And the one thing I should have done is just pass that spot up, because not like a few spaces down, there was like 4 open slots that I could have easily pulled into without any concrete being there. But that's the thing. I wasn't used to that style of parking garage. There was a person, like, it was like the perfect cocktail of disaster, honestly. And it could have been worse. I could have hit another car or whatever. I didn't, but I could have. I guess that all kind of just culminated in like, okay, I'm not used to this style of parking garage. I'm not used to this aggressive of drivers. And like I said before, I know it sounds like I'm making excuses, but I am fully at fault for the damage that happened to my car. It's not like I'm trying to put it off on someone else, It's just one of those things. It's like, I can't believe this happened. There were so many circumstances that were happening at the same time that distracted me or that put me off my usual good driving game. And yeah, I scratched up the side of my car a little bit. So that sucks, but it's life. And it's not like I'm not going to pay like $1 million to get it fixed, but it ended up like after a couple days of driving and like a little bit of rain, it doesn't look that bad, honestly. And you can definitely see it, but all that stuff. So anyway, we parked, and then that's when we walked like 5 or so minutes to the venue, and then there was a parking garage literally right next to the venue that had tons of spots open. It was an open garage too. It was like there was no top to it for whatever reason. They were still building it, I guess. I don't even know. Maybe it was an aesthetic thing. I don't know. But it was completely wide open, no weird random concrete beams sticking out of the floor. So, once again, the perfect poo cocktail supreme to to ruin my day. But anyway, my day got much better because that's when we got into the concert venue, and I was so ready for this. Like, a lot of times when we go to concerts, it's, the other half brings me the idea of going to a concert with a couple bands that we like, and I'm like, yeah, let's go. This is one of the rare occasions where I was like, I want to go to this show. I need to go to this show. These are 3 bands that I really enjoy. I mean, I'm not a huge Dragon Force fan, I'll be honest, but Necrogoblicon and Metalocalypse, aka Death Clock, are like, Necrogoblicon has been a rising force in my favorite bands category. And I've seen them live 2 times before this one. This is my 3rd time seeing them, and they always put on like an amazing show. And then Death Clock is just a once in a lifetime kind of thing, because they were gone for like 10 years, and I feel like they're really not going to tour again after this. So it was one of those things. It's like, okay, this is like a perfect. This is the perfect cocktail of bands, because you also get to see the amazing show that Dragon Force puts on. I'm like not a huge like Dragon Force guy per se. I enjoy their music, but it's not a band that I'm going to listen to in like an entire album or whatever. But the show that they put on is like just so incredible and impressive that it's like you almost go for just the experience alone, But the day started off, I got my merch. Where the night started off, and I got my merch. I got a shirt from Death Clock and a shirt from Necrogoblicon, and we took our place in the kind of like it was like the first floor balcony. And it was very comfortable. Down in the pit was crazy. Like it was a sea of people, and it was just crazy packed, and there was like 3 different mosh pits happening at one time, and I knew that like. Because my feet were hurting from the last day, and yes, sure, I had like a 4-hour break off of my feet. They were still hurting, so we took the spot on the balcony area because you could lean against the railing in front of you, and you could put your stuff down, and you could just kind of have a chill time while watching the bands, and that's what we did. And it was a good placement for 2 out of the 3 bands. Metalocalypse, aka Death Clock, had stuff appearing on the screen that we couldn't really see. It was like clips from the show and stuff like that, so that was kind of a bummer. But I mean, the main meat and bones of the band, like the experience is still there, so it's like not that big of a deal. But for the other, for Dragon Force and for Necrogoblicon, it was great. It was a great place to see. And as I said before, Necrogoblicon puts on a great show, and I love that funny green man. John Goblicon comes on the stage, and they just have like. Even though they recently departed ways with their original vocalist, they've done a good job of keeping the energy high and keeping the comedy high, and just kind of keeping, working around what happened. So they have the new singer Dickie in the band, and I saw them when the original singer originally left. I saw them on tour in around Cleveland. And it was like this little dive bar type place. It was a really compact venue, but it was so much fun. And they put out the same energy at the show. And they did run through some of the same jokes. But obviously, this is like a major tour for them. Like, I feel like Necrogoblicon has gotten so many more fans just from this one tour alone. Because everyone in the crowd, at least for when I was there, was enjoying the music. They played all the greatest hits, I guess you could say. And there were actually people in the audience dressed up as goblins. Like there was like 3 people or 2 people with goblin masks, one guy with like an actual like goblin like outfit on, which was really cool. And when they played dressed as goblins, John Goblicon was like, "Do we have anyone dressed as goblins out there?" And like they of course, obviously they cheered, and he's like, "Hey, there's 3 of them." And then they went right into the song, which starts off with the lyric, "Dressed as goblins, dressed as goblins." It's such a fun moment. It was just a fun moment, and they played actually a pretty relatively short set. I think it was only like 20 or so minutes. I thought they were gonna play at 30, but they played like a 20-minute set, and they were done, and then. They were starting to get ready for Dragon Force after that, and their setup was the longest out of all the 3 of them, and it's for good reason. It's because they had 2 inflatable, glowing red and blue-eyed dragons pop up. They had arcade machines that were like playing sped-up footage of old classic arcade games like Donkey Kong and Streets of Rage and stuff like that. And they had like all these laser effects, and like the drum kit had the little images popping up on it, and they were platforms for them to stand on. They could stand on top of the arcade cabinets. And like I said before, I'm not huge on Dragon Force. Like I enjoy their music. I'm not like a diehard fan or anything like that. But when they know how to put on a show. And even though like their new album is good, they played a song from that album that I was like, I knew they were gonna play it, but I was wishing they weren't going to play it. And when they played it, like, yeah, sure, it's hype at the time, but looking back on it now, it's like you could have slotted any other song into that slot, and it would have been better. And if you don't know what the song is that I'm talking about, it's the disco metal song that they put on their new album called Doomsday Party. And it's like, yeah, sure, it's a fun like listen, but it's not a song that I want to really listen to, especially live, because it doesn't have the same presence as the album version. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on that's not really there. But it was still a fun show by Dragon Force. The other bizarre thing is they kept saying like, and here's a song from the new album. And it's like, yeah, you've played 3 in a row. Like, this is nothing new. And of course they're touring for the new album, so it's not like it's like crazy that they're playing only new stuff. But they kept, like, the lead singer kept being like, and here's a new song from the album. And it's like, yeah, no shit. You've done like 3 of them in a row. Like, it's not that crazy of a thing. I would say most of the set was new stuff, which is fine because the new stuff is good. But yeah, they played. The other bizarre thing is they played 2 songs that are on the deluxe edition that you can't even get on Spotify, and the one is a Celine Dion cover of "My Heart Will Go On," which was a banger. I will say that was a banger rendition of the song. I would listen to that any day. And then they also did a cover of a Taylor Swift song, and I was like, okay, okay. But the performance is great either way. I'm not gonna shit on them too much for playing Doomsday Party in a cover of a Taylor Swift song. Like, it's fine. Full of good energy. Herman Lee's like gotten big on like YouTube and Twitch nowadays, and he was awesome to see live. Also, during the Power of the Triforce song, they threw a chicken into the audience, like a big stuffed chicken, and he was like, I want to see that thing go to the rafters, right? And it was obviously a joke, but the crowd actually did it. They were able to get the chicken all the way to the top of like this like 4-story like balcony, and it was pretty crazy, and it was really hype too. Like, it was really, really hype. Like, when the chicken was flopping around, that was like the most. It was pretty fun. I'm not gonna say it was the most fun, but it was pretty freaking fun to see that chicken go all around the stadium, and not stadium, but the venue, and all the way into like the high reaches of the balcony sections and stuff like that. It's a really cool experience. A really cool show. I'm glad that I saw it. It's not like I regret seeing it because they played one song I didn't like. It's definitely one of those shows that's like, I'm glad that I saw it. I would totally see them again, but I'm not going to go out of my way to see them, right? So there you go. And then to wrap up the night, it was Death Clock, and I remember the people standing next to me. There was a girl and like 3 dudes, and the girl was like, well, if Dragon Force is doing this, then I can't wait to see what Metalocalypse does. And the fucking funniest thing ever, Metalocalypse, they set up the stage for them, and she's like, where's all the stuff? And the band comes out, and it's just a basic stage. They have lights in the background, some fog. It's just the 3 guitarists and the drums in like a very classic setup. And I was like, you know it's gonna be good when they let the music do the talking, right? Like, yeah, it's fun to see all the craziness that Dragon Force does, but you know that when a band comes out and there's not much to their show floor, you know it's gonna be a kick-ass concert, because they let the music do the talking, right? And that's exactly what Death Clock did. They literally brought the house. No, they didn't literally, but they brought the house. It was like an amazing performance. Like I said before, it's probably like a once in a lifetime chance to see them live. They put out the new album last year, and it was like a 10-year hiatus. And like I said, I don't think they're gonna be coming back for another album. But it was just so exciting to see them live, do these songs live that you see on the show or hear on the records. They played through everything. Like it's not like they were just on the new album either. Like, they played stuff all the way back to the first album. They were playing Thunder Horse and Bloodlines and Mermaider and all that stuff. Like all the classics along with the new stuff that's also really good as well. So I was very satisfied with the entire show, of course, but like, you know, Metalocalypse, I was very satisfied with how they had their set list and stuff like that. I was very happy. And the show was great, and the audience loved it. And once again, at the end of it all, it's crazy that this happened twice, but they didn't do an encore. I was very surprised that they didn't like come on for one more song or something like that. I guess once you get to the age that most of the members in Metalocalypse are, you kind of don't want to, you know, overexert yourself, I suppose, because they are getting up there in age, but they can still do it. They played great. There's a lot of fun moments. There was like a moment where they had a character come on screen, and they were giving tips for going to concerts, like metal concerts, and the final tip that they gave was like take a shower, and like I don't know if the people in the audience who don't know that they smell bad like took a whiff of their own BO and was like, oh shit, I'm that person. But you could tell a few people in the audience were like, oh shit, I smell. It's because there was a few people who like were kind of looking around like wondering if they're the problem, you know. And that has been a bit of a problem at shows. Even the show for Hail the Sun, we were standing next to someone who smelled like they hadn't taken a shower in like 3 decades. And it's just one of those things like, yeah, it's gross and it smells and you're there for the music, so you try to ignore it, but it's always like you get like that random whiff every so often. Like, you know, eventually you kind of ignore the smell, but then like you get that whiff and it's like, oh fuck, there it is again. And I feel like we always get stuck either by the mosh or by the gross smelling people, or both, I guess. Yeah, I mean, this is just a public service announcement. If you're going to go to a show where you're going to be packed in there like sardines, you know, take a shower before going, you know? It's not that big of a deal. You know, you put, you know, maybe wear a little bit of deodorant. I don't think it's that big of an ask, especially when you're in such a crowded venue, you know. And I get it. It's hot in there, you're sweating. Maybe you did take a shower. Maybe you did put on deodorant, but it just wasn't enough. I don't know. Maybe bring something with you if you're like a person who can't keep their deodorant on for an hour, you know. And then one of the more bizarre things that's happened to me happened to me at a concert happened where the people beside me, they were getting really drunk. Like they were getting to that point where they didn't know what they were. I wouldn't say that they were blackout, but you know, they got to that point where they weren't going to remember what happened the next day, right? They were in the moment and they were having fun, but they weren't going to remember anything by the time that they woke up in the morning. And it was just kind of like building throughout the entire night. Like, you know, started off with them being pretty calm and just drinking a few beers, and then by the time the Dragon Force was over and Metalocalypse was starting, that's when they like started to become kind of not rowdy, but just kind of annoying, right? And I'm not one of those people who's going to be like, oh, fuck you guys, get out of here, right? I was just kind of ignoring them. You know, you kind of turn your back to them a little bit just to be like, I don't want to talk to you. And I had my jacket over the railing, and it was I had it spread out so that it was like covering my area, right? And the guy came over and he was leaning on it for quite some time during the Metalocalypse, and eventually I noticed it, and I was like, I just tugged it away. And like it was like I flipped the switch, because like all of a sudden he was like just apologizing to me like for like an entire like 2 songs that Death Clock played. He was like apologizing. I'm like, dude, it's fine. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, I've had worse things happen to me at concerts, right? Like, you're fine. And he was like, I'm so sorry. We're being too rowdy. I'm like, you're fine. Like, literally, you are fine. I gave him a fist bump and I was like, dude, if I had a problem, I wouldn't be here, or I would tell you. Like, it's fine. You're having a good time. It's okay. You know, just do what you want to do. Just don't involve me, essentially, is what I said. I didn't say that exactly, but, you know, it's kind of the gist of it. And he, like, for some reason, it was two songs, 2 straight songs of him just apologizing over and over and over. I'm like, dude, please. So eventually, towards the end of the set, they noticed that a spot opened up down below. There's like so it's weird. So it's the first floor balcony, but there's like two lower tiers in front of you. It was a kind of a weird setup, and there was a spot opened up right below us, and so they drunkenly took their like 5 cans of alcohol and went down there. And there was a dude who had been standing there alone for the entire show throughout Necrogoblicon into Deathclack. And he was just kind of vibing, just kind of listening to the music, nodding his head, as you do, enjoying the music. And this is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. But the 2 drunk guys go down there, they place all their beer cans, they throw some of them away, surprisingly. And they start drinking some more. And during the next song, they're like rubbing up against this guy, and they're like, the one guy starts to like put his arm around him, and it's like, I don't think they knew each other. And then all of a sudden, the one guy who was like apologizing to me took out his phone and started taking like pictures and stuff like that. And he took a picture of them with the random guy, and the random guy like definitely did not want to have his picture taken or whatever. It was just such a weird moment. And after that song, the guy that they were practically harassing left, and I was like, okay, that sucks for that guy. He had a good spot. I'm glad it wasn't me though. I am so glad it wasn't me, because I don't know what I would have done, honestly. I really don't. It was already weird enough to have that apologizing mode happen. I don't know what I would have done if they started like trying to take pictures with me and like putting their arm around me and stuff like that. Like, if you know me over these past like couple years that I've been on YouTube and Twitch, not really a drinker, don't really enjoy that kind of thing. And they were just like, they were a shining example of why I don't really like that scene of like overly drunk, just whatever, piss drunk, I guess you could call it. That was like a prime example of that, especially when they went down and started to like really just kind of be crazy. So Metalocalypse's set ended and they didn't do an encore, and I turned to my significant other and said, we're out of here. I'm not gonna be near these guys while we're leaving. And boom, we left. The drive home wasn't bad at all. The streets were pretty empty, at least. But it was a great show. I enjoyed my time. I just like with Hail the Sun, I wouldn't change a thing. I'd go through it all again to see these 3 bands again. Like I said before, even though I don't like some, the disco song that Dragon Force played or the Taylor Swift song, I would gladly re-listen to those songs again if it meant having the experience again. I'm not shitting on them in the slightest. It was a great show. All 3 bands did great. Loved it. Was definitely worth it. And yeah, I went to bed happy, What more could you want? And then the next day was even more stuff. So the next day we decided to head over into Kentucky and Newport for the aquarium. And when we got to the parking lot, it had like the pay with your phone thing, which was you scanned or texted a number and you could pay with like a credit card or something like that, and you could like scan a little QR code and pay. I wish that they would add that stuff to the places around here in Cleveland. Like, that's such an easy way to do it. And you could buy a certain amount of time. So we bought like 4 hours. It was way too much. And you just kind of leave and go, and I guess they have like a camera or maybe a valet or whatever who watches the cars and makes sure that you actually paid for your spot. But it was a very cool thing. I'd never seen that before. It's very handy. I would like to see that popping up in other places. So we go to breakfast at this place, and I was going to get something actually breakfasty, but at that time it was like almost 11 at that point. And they had a Nashville hot chicken sandwich. And I'm like, look, we're in Kentucky. You gotta get the Nashville hot. That's like the whole thing. The Nashville hot sandwich. Nashville, Kentucky. They're gonna do it the best, aren't they? You're thinking I'm about to say wrong. No, that's right. They definitely do it the best. That was the best Nashville hot chicken sandwich I had ever had. No, I'm not even kidding. It was sweet and hot and delicious. And most of the time when you get a Nashville hot, it's just hot. They did it right, folks. So that was a good start off to the day. We went to the aquarium. It was very busy. It was kind of weird because the sign outside the aquarium was like, if there's enough people, we have to do things in segments. You might have you might have to get in at like 12:30 instead of 12 o'clock or whatever. You have like a scheduled time to walk in. We didn't have to do that though, which is nice. But it was pretty packed in there. But it was also it was a nice aquarium, I will say. It wasn't as good as like the Seattle aquarium that we went to. I would say it's kind of on par with like the Cleveland aquarium, I would say. But they had a lot of fun creatures in there, a lot of fun creatures. There was like an entire section of just eels inside their little barrels and buckets and stuff like that. Pretty funny. And they had like this giant shark tank that had manta sharks, I think they were, which was pretty cool. I don't think I've really ever seen those before. And then they also had 2 albino crocodiles in like this bayou setup, which was pretty cool too. And there was a lot to it though. There was a whole lot of animals and sea creatures. And then pretty much towards the end, there was like this bridge, this rope bridge you could walk over. You could walk over the shark tank, which was pretty cool. It kind of shows you just how big the entire thing is, and you walk across it. It was a little bit spooky too, but it was pretty cool. I thought that was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool adventure. Can't complain about that. And the nice thing about this area in Newport, Kentucky, is the area that we were in where the aquarium was in was like this little like I don't know, I guess I'm gonna call it urban area, but like it's like little like pedestrian area, maybe I'll call it, where it was like a bunch of like shops in almost like a strip mall fashion, but not really. And it was like a multi-layered kind of thing going on. It was just a really cool area, and by the time we got out of the aquarium, like there was a lot of people there, and we just decided to hang out in the area for a little while because it was kind of cool. For the first time since I was like 12 years old, I had Cold Stone, which is an ice cream parlor that closed down around here a while ago, and I haven't had it in that long. And I got the birthday cake remix, which was freaking delicious. It was the birthday cake mix ice cream with sprinkles and brownie chunks in it. It was really good. I'm so glad that we went to the Cold Stone. It was so good. And like I said, I hadn't been to a Cold Stone since I was like 12 or 13 at least, you know. Yeah, it was pretty cool. And then they also had like they had like this arcade inside of one of the areas. Kind of was like around here we have round 1. It was kind of like that, where you had to buy a card to put money onto to play at the arcade. And they had like a perfect Guitar Hero arcade cabinet. The guitars were in good condition. The cabinet itself was in great condition. The screen was great. The buttons felt good. The strum bar was nice, but we didn't end up playing it because we really didn't have time because we wanted to also go to the zoo. And 2, I didn't feel like getting a card for a place that, you know, I'm gonna be there once and never again, right? So I just decided, you know, it's nice. I took a picture of it, and I was like, that's cool. And then we moved on. But it was really nice. It was a nice cabinet. I definitely, if we had more time, or if I really, really wanted to, I definitely would have played a song or two. But yeah, I just didn't do it. And if you're wondering, Guitar Hero Arcade is pretty much just the Guitar Hero 3 set list in arcade mode. So you can play a song for like $1. You can also do like the battle mode, I'm pretty sure, or at least the co-op mode, where one person plays like the rhythm guitar or bass. Do like a score attack if you want to. The last time I played a Guitar Hero arcade machine, I played the song Belly of a Shark by The Gallows. And I don't know why I picked that song, because there's a lot of other songs that are better, but for some reason I just decided to pick that one. So if you're ever playing Guitar Hero 3 or Guitar Hero Arcade and Belly of a Shark is on your set list, think of me. After that, we went to the Cincinnati Zoo, famous for the incident in 2016 involving Harambe, the gorilla. It's also a pretty big zoo, and going into it, I wasn't sure what to expect, but for a zoo that's like in smack dab in the middle of a city, it was pretty nice. It was packed too. We got there a little bit later than I guess we're expecting. The zoo closed at like 5, and we got there at like 12 or 1. I don't remember exactly when. So we didn't have a lot of time to like chill out and spend time there, but we got to see pretty much everything. We got to see the elephants, the giraffes. We got to take a ride on the zoo train, which was like a 5-minute little electric train that went around a track, which was kind of fun, you know. The meerkats were probably one of my favorite things we saw because they were very active and they were very funny. I sent a picture in the Discord. One of them was just like sitting like a human, you know, like on their butt, and it was just like it was the funniest fucking thing ever. But the best thing in the zoo is the hippo exhibit. I know a lot of people like the gorillas, but the hippo exhibit was amazing. They had like 4, I think, hippos. One of them being the famous Rosa, who was like famous for being born like 6 weeks early, and they weren't sure if she was gonna live, and she ended up living and whatever. But it was like a really nice enclosure, and like the hippos were like very active once again, like swimming around right in front of the glass and stuff like that. Pretty cool. And then we saw the gorillas as well. We saw the Harambe memorial, I guess you could call it. It's a very small plaque that's a part of a larger plaque that just is celebrating the gorilla exhibit at the zoo. So let me just read this here. It says, "The tragic death of our beloved silverback Harambe demonstrated the compelling power a single gorilla has to inspire the world to take notice and care." No mention of meme status, but that's okay. It was really cool to see the enclosure though, because like apparently they've been like fostering these gorillas since like the 50s or whatever, and they had a pretty like they had pictures of like every single gorilla that they ever had. Pretty interesting. There's a lot of fun stuff there though. There was a lot of cool stuff there. It was just a bit crowded, which made it really difficult to just like sit and watch. You know, like the giraffes we missed like the feeding time, but like they were still out and about, and like there's just like like a group of people almost as tightly packed as the Hail of the Sun concert that just wanted to see these giraffes. And same thing with like the wild dogs or whatever they are. They weren't really doing anything, but people were like just crowding the fucking area. It was like you got in and you got to like take a picture and maybe watch them for a couple seconds, and then people were like, you know, waiting to get in. It's like you feel bad because you want everyone to get a chance to look at the animals, you know. And then there was like a lion. There's a lion, and there's 2 lions, and they also weren't doing much of anything. But you know, once again, the people were crowding around. But the funny thing is, the hippo exhibit where they had like a lot of, you know, or the meerkat one where they had a lot of things going on. Yeah, people didn't really seem to care. They cared about the hippo obviously, but the meerkats, like people were just walking by them, and I was like, look at what these meerkats are doing. They're like running around. They're sitting. They're sitting. Why aren't you looking at this? You know? But yeah, that was pretty much the whole day. We got back to the hotel around like 6:30-ish. I got to take another lovely drive through the area surrounding Cincinnati because we got food from this burger place that was it was a little bit out of the way. It's like 15 minutes out of the way, but it was like this not really even, it wasn't downtown. It was like in this like a suburban downtown, if that makes sense, where it's not like towers and skyscrapers. It's like a bunch of like, it's like a grid pattern street with a bunch of businesses dotting around the sides. And it was another like hellish experience where the burgers were done, so I couldn't find any parking, so I just dropped the significant other on the sidewalk, and she walked in to get the food, and I had to keep going. And I went around like this really bizarre like square through an alley, and then I was about to pull out onto the main road to pick her up, and a car just was zooming down the street, so I had to stop in the crosswalk. And of course, like, you know, now there's like a line of cars, so instead of just being stopped in the crosswalk for a second to allow that car to go past, well, now I'm sitting there for like a full minute. And it was one of those areas where it's like you gotta stop for pedestrians, yield for pedestrians, which should be really any metropolitan area, honestly. But I was sitting there and I'm like, when am I gonna be able to fucking go? Like, this is crazy. And finally, a car stops to let me go. But there was a group of people crossing the street, of course, at that time, so I had to, you know, I made sure to let them go. But I felt like a dick because I was in the middle of the crosswalk. People were walking around me. I'm like, look, I didn't mean for this to happen, but it just kind of did. And on this occasion, I'm gonna blame the crazy drivers of Cincinnati, because if that guy wasn't going like at least 10 over the speed limit down this street that was very narrow and had cars parked on all sides and there was pedestrians everywhere, I would have been fine. So in this case, it was not my fault that I was in the crosswalk, okay? I would have been fine on any other day and any other place, but because of this specific instance, I was the asshole. But we got burgers from this place, and it was really good burger, and the restaurant was themed for like bands. So I got the Hamstein, which is obviously a play on the Rammstein. And it was a burger with bacon on it and sauerkraut on a pretzel bun. It was delicious. They had another burger that was like themed around Metallica. It was called Meat-Talica. I forget exactly what was on them, but I do remember some of the names. So there was the Meat-Talica. There was the... Alright, I guess I don't remember the other... I guess I don't remember the other burgers. It was really good, though. That was a really good burger place. There's not many places that I go to I'm like, oh, this is an excellent burger. This is definitely one of those times. Another time was when I was kind of around the Cleveland area. There was this new burger place across the street from the place that I saw Stop Making Sense, the Talking Heads like movie concert experience. And like it was a really shady kind of place to go and get a burger, but the burger was fantastic. So like I'd go back, but yeah, I mean, what other places would I say that like the burgers are like really, really good? I guess I don't want to go specifics, but yeah, there's some good burgers around, but like this was like a good burger, right? You don't always get a good burger when you go to places. And that was pretty much it. The next morning we pretty much got up and started going around like 10 o'clock. We went to breakfast at a place about 30 minutes away towards where we needed to go, and that was great. And then the rest of the way was just a lot of traffic. Like there wasn't a lot of traffic until we hit Columbus, and that's like from Columbus all the way to Cleveland was just like traffic. It was kind of crazy, especially for like a Sunday evening, I guess. I was very surprised at just how much traffic there was, and we even stopped a couple times, and it just never thinned out. So on the drive there was much better, even though it was like raining the entire time on and off. But the drive back was a bit more stress inducing, just simply because there was just that much traffic. And of course, like, you know, when I'm driving on the freeway, it's usually I'm usually going like 10 over the speed limit. Like if the speed limit is 60, I'm going 70. If the speed limit is 70, I'm going like 77. Okay, like I feel like that's fine. And I was going like I had my cruise control set to 77. You know, maybe I would tap it up to 78 if I really wanted to. And like the cars behind me were just like catching up to me so fast. And like, of course, there was like lines of cars. There's only a 2-lane highway at the time. So like, there's a lineup of cars next to me. So I'm not gonna move over behind a slow-moving truck just to let these assholes go who are going 90 miles per hour. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna like waste my time slamming on my brakes, slowing down behind a slow-moving truck because they need to get past me. No, you're gonna fucking wait until there's a break in traffic where I want to move over. Like, fuck you. Like what the hell? And it's like, I realized this probably about 6 years ago now, that like if you're going 90 on the freeway, how much time are you really saving, right? There's been so many times where someone zooms past me on the freeway, and like I get off at my exit and they're still sitting there at the traffic light. It's like, how much time are you really saving? And maybe that's just the old man inside of me coming out, but like, yeah, I mean, you're really not saving any time at all, and you're honestly, I mean, we just had this whole thing happen with what's his name, Richie Rice from the Chiefs. He's a wide receiver on the Chiefs, who was like racing these like super fast sports cars. Like, you're really just putting more people at risk when you do that shit too. Like, you're just weaving in and out of traffic. And that was what was kind of happening. People were just like weaving in. They like would speed up and go around me, and I'm like, look, dude, I'm already going like 77 miles per hour on this fucking freeway, and you're going like 90 around me, and there's other people going like 70, 65, 70 in the slow lane, right? Like, you're the one who's gonna, like, out of anyone who's gonna cause an accident, it's gonna be you, because you're just being a total dingus on the freeway. Okay. So that's my old man rant for the day, I guess. But yeah, it's not like I drive slow either. Like I said, I'm usually 5 to 10 miles over the speed limit, depending on what the speed limit is. You know, if it's 35, I'm going 42. If it's 60, I'm going 70. If it's 70, I'm going 75 to 77. You know, it's just, yeah, it's kind of bizarre. It's kind of bizarre. So there you go. But yeah, we had a great time. It was a great vacation. I know, like, I wanted to do a Ferret 64, but I was like, it can wait another week. Like, I just wanted to have a nice chill weekend, and if I was going to do a Ferret 64, it would have been on the day that we got back, which was we got back I would have done it the day after, which was Monday, but I took the day off because I was like, I want to make a big weekend out of it. And if I was going to record the podcast on Monday, it would have been like a 3-hour commitment. And I was like, I'd rather just chill, maybe play a game or something, instead of working on the podcast. So any news that came out that would have been on the podcast last week is just going to be on this week's podcast. So whatever. And also, like, when I miss a week, it's also like it weeds out some of the, like, the more lesser video game news items, because I can be really picky and choosy, because, like, I don't want like a 3-hour episode. Who's gonna listen to a 3-hour episode of a podcast? I know there are podcasts that I listen to that are way more than 3 hours, but like me talking into a microphone about video games for 3 hours, who's gonna really listen to that? I see that my cutoff time is about an hour 30 for most people, so it's like, all right, I try and keep it around that time. So if I gotta trim some fat here and there, things that would have been in a normal podcast episode just aren't gonna be there, So don't expect there to be like the really niche kind of video game news on the next podcast. But yeah, I'm kind of having a busy month because once again, I'm not gonna be streaming on Saturday because I have obligations that I need to attend to, and then on Sunday, the day after, I am going to be able to do the podcast, but we're going to this orchestra thing where they're playing the soundtrack. They're playing along to the Batman movie from 1989 with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson, which is probably going to be really cool. We watched the Nightmare Before Christmas a couple years ago. An orchestra played the songs live, and that was really cool. So it's probably going to be a pretty cool experience. So I'm kind of excited for that. But I've just had a very busy month this month, and once again, I won't be streaming on Saturday, but I'll be around. So it's not like I'm going to be MIA, but I'll be around. Just won't be streaming. After this month, I think things are going to kind of go back to a bit more normal, I guess you would say. Especially with like the streaming schedule. Like I've been playing Assassin's Creed Rogue, pretty much the only thing I've been playing this past week. So once I get back on Monday, we're gonna do one more Assassin's Creed Rogue stream before switching out to another game, which is probably gonna be it's probably gonna be the Xbox 360 Katamari game. So don't quote me on that because I could change my mind, but I got that for the Xbox 360 almost right after beating Katamari Damacy. I think it's called Katamari Forever. So we'll see how that one is. It's an Xbox 360 exclusive, which is kind of crazy for a Katamari game. So yeah, things should start to get back to normal after this weekend. But just know that it's gonna be it's gonna be another streamless weekend, but there will be a podcast at least. So there you go. And then tomorrow is Film Freaks. We're talking with Demonic Lucy about Kung Fu Panda. So if you want to check that out, that'll be available tomorrow at the usual time. And then once again, if you want to listen to the VOD of this podcast, that will be available the following Thursday. I'm not uploading them the next day or even the next weekend as I used to, because my podcast schedule is already so packed, especially on weeks that I do Film Freaks or release them. So, yeah, so I decided to space it out a little bit. Because recording the podcast is easy. It's like, okay, it's just a stream. But when you upload it, it just makes your feed a little bit too congested, in my opinion. Okay. Well, that is going to be it for today, folks. Hope you all had a good time. As I said before, I won't be back on Saturday, but I'm sure there'll be other people to watch over the weekend, as you do. But I will have a Ferret 64 episode coming out next weekend, so you'll still, or this weekend? Yeah, this week. So you'll still have me, but you won't see me. Yeah. And yeah, that's all I really gotta say. That's all I gotta say about that. I think this episode went a lot better than last week. I'm not thinking of deleting this episode if that tells you anything. But yeah, hope you all had a good time. I will be back in 2 weeks to record this episode. If you are listening to this on the VOD or the podcast version and you want to join in on the recording session, just tune in every other Thursday. We start around 8 p.m. and go till about 10 o'clock usually, but sometimes it's earlier, sometimes it's later, You can also join the podcast by either suggesting topics in the Ferret Nation Discord channel for the Ferret Cafe Podcast, or you can actually do sound commands and be a bit of a producer on the podcast as well. So if that is your calling in life, maybe swing by and see how you do. I know that there's a delay. What? There's a delay, of course, with the live and the chat. So sometimes things aren't exactly lined up, but unless I had someone actually in the call with me, there's really no way to fix that. And I have it on low latency mode too, so it's not even that big of a gap, but it's just enough to be like, okay, there's a bit of a gap, but it's fun. So try my best here, folks. Okay, well, as you know, on podcast days we don't raid out. So I hope you all have a good rest of your day. Thank you for swinging by, saying howdy do, lurking in the chat, and joining the conversation. And I hope you all have a good rest of your night. Have a good sleep. Or have a good day tomorrow. Have a good weekend if I don't hear from you. I'm the Ferret and I'm out of here. So long.
Bye, bitch.